he's the pick. If we were doing this 10 years ago, we'd have had Mohamed Amir in, wouldn't we? So what could possibly go wrong?
Hello and welcome to ESPN Cricinfo Dream Team. I'm Karthik Iyer, a slightly unfamiliar face on a familiar show to bring you this episode where our selection panel selects a men's Test 11 for the future, where each of the players are currently under the age of 25. All right, guys, so let's get down to it. You guys are the panel. We need to select 11 players under the age of 25, a Dream 11 for Test cricket, men's Test cricket for the future. I'll just say one thing. I have a feeling, Ronak, that this list is going to be bookended by two very, very familiar names. So let's start with you, Ronak. Your openers. Who do you go with?
So if I'm to go with openers, now this took perhaps the longest time for me. Does Prithvi Shaw merit a place in my future team or not? And while I started by saying those that have done it at Test level, Prithvi Shaw is so much talent. And yet there's something about me that tells me that I'm not quite sure he's going to cut it at the Test level. I think he'll be a great white ball player. People make the comparisons with Virender Sehwag, who turned out to be a far more effective Test cricketer than he did white ball cricketer. But I think it's only the evidence of that one Test in Australia and a little bit in New Zealand, where you tend to feel like good fast bowlers will find their way through Prithvi Shaw. And all of this is guesswork, right? This could all be wrong. We could all look stupid in 10 years' time when we replay this and watch it. But there was something about Prithvi Shaw overseas that didn't ooze a lot of confidence in me. It'd be very interesting to see if he plays a Test, if he would play a Test in Australia after this IPL as against the last one, whether things would have been different. But as much as I wanted him, I have three more Indians that I want in this team, which is why Prithvi Shaw did not make the cut. So I've not gone with Prithvi Shaw. I have given, Alan Gardner would be either surprised or pleasantly surprised or unpleasantly surprised. I've given my vote of confidence to Haseeb Hameed, one of the great stories of England's domestic cricket. And the timing couldn't be better for this recording, with Haseeb Hameed suddenly back from the abyss, making runs for fun in county cricket. And like I said, for someone who came in as a teenager in the subcontinent, which, let's be honest, is now the final frontier for any team outside of Asia, right? So an England opening bat who could play spin in India, as a teenager, literally impressed on his first one, then went missing. Whatever went wrong, Alan will help perhaps fill those gaps more. But I just think Haseeb Hameed could be a special player in 5, 6, 7 years' time or a decade's time. Partnering Haseeb Hameed, I've gone with someone who I think actually might dominate international cricket. And I know it's the evidence of one Test match, but there are those that you think when you watch them that they were just ready for international cricket. And Will Pucovski was ready, you feel, when he came into the Australian side in the fourth Test. I haven't seen enough of Pucovski, but a first-class average of 53 is impressive. And that being said, he didn't look out of his depth playing for Australia in what was a difficult series for them, when they did have David Warner out of sorts, when they were struggling to find a partner for him with Joe Burns not being able to buy a run. And Pucovski seems to represent the best of what Australia has to offer right now.
Well, but I want to go back to Haseeb Hameed, like Ronak mentioned. I'm not convinced at all. It was 5 years ago that he came to India. He played all his 5 tests. He's disappeared for the next 5. And finally, he's coming good, including his hairstyle as well, which looks oddly similar to yours as well.
That's the only reason I didn't want him in this team. But I'll let the hair go. I think that'll change in 5 years too. Cricketers don't have the same hairstyles that they did 6, 7 years back anymore.
And then Cricinfo will be making a list of the best hairstyles that we have seen from Haseeb Hameed from 17 to whatever it is, 30. But Alan, why didn't Ronak pick Shubman Gill?
Oh, no, hold on. I've got Shubman Gill.
But you're putting him down the order. Yeah.
Okay, let me add that point. That's a good point that you make. I think Shubman Gill, as much as he's impressed at the top of the order in this series, I think he is a quintessential Test number 4. There are already concerns about his technique against the moving ball. Even though he's a natural stroke player, he will be your ideal Test match number 4 in all conditions. He does have the game to come in early if need be in challenging conditions too. We've seen that. He scored match-winning runs in Australia. But I think if you keep him as an opener for the long term, you're not going to be getting the best out of him. Therefore, Shubman Gill slots in at 4 in my team. I should have mentioned that. Sorry.
All right, Daniel, Alan, keep that in consideration. But Alan, I'll go back to you. I'm sure you want to say the name of Zak Crawley. It's just there, right in front of you.
God, so many names to be juggling here right now. I've got Zak Crawley in my team, but not as an opener. I've got Shubman Gill in my team as an opener. I haven't considered Haseeb Hameed because, with all due respect to Ronak and recency bias, he is so far off the radar. I'm not sure he'll even play Test cricket for England again, let alone for the World 11 for the next 5 to 10 years. But I mean, it's a gutsy pick, and I'm not against those. But Hameed has had such a bad trot, like 4 years of Ronak mentioned the abyss. I think if you can find something deeper and darker than the abyss, that's actually where Hameed went. I mean, he got released by Lancashire after averaging 9.5, I think, in a season, and he has scored 300s this summer. And he's looking very good for Notts, and I include his hair in that. But there's far too much. I think it's far too much to be putting on him at this stage, beyond just the romantic notion that this kid who was so good when we saw him in England Whites kind of 4 or 5 years ago could come again. So that's. For me, selection-wise, that's too much of a punt. I'm all for. I've mentioned going on gut and so on rather than numbers. But Hameed didn't come into my thinking, and Ronak's going to have to argue pretty hard, I think, to win that case.
I think Ronak just like it's fine. I had to make a case for Hameed. I did so, and
the thing was, I really think Shubman Gill will be better served even for India. So
all right. So we'll see where he fits in Daniel's 11. Daniel, I'm sure Gill is somewhere around. Is Pekovsky in your 11A, and where does Gill fit in?
Gill is in my team, and he's in my team as an opener. But I didn't pick Gill. I also didn't pick Prithvi Shaw, but not because I have 3 other Indians in my team. It's basically because I thought I had to make a pick between Shubman Gill and Prithvi Shaw. I had to choose one of them. And in this aspect, I agree with Ronak that from what I saw of Shubman Gill, I thought he was more cut out to be in that side for a much longer period of time than Shaw was. Of course, Shaw had that absence, and since he's come back from it, he hasn't looked quite as impressive as he did when he made his debut. And if maybe we're doing this this episode at the wrong time, if we did this 6 months later and Shaw was in form, maybe all of us would just gone for him. He missed out for me. I've actually gone for a bit of a wild card, and I'm prepared to make myself sound silly. I was on the Cricketers New Zealand podcast a few months ago when Pakistan were in New Zealand, and I was talking to one of the hosts, Iden Bell, and I asked him, I said, among the young players in New Zealand, the one that gets the most hype is Rachin Ravindra. And he said, well, he does. He's considered a possible heir apparent to Kane Williamson at some point, but I'm going to go for Finn Allen. And then I looked him up. I hadn't seen much of him. I saw him make his T20 debut against New Zealand, and then he scored 71 of 29. But then from what I've looked of his first class career, I don't really think he's doing justice to that. And I think New Zealand have messed around with their opening partnership a bit, even though they are number 1 in that format. I think other than Tom Latham, they've had Will Young, they've had Tom Blundell. So this is just purely a wild card pick. In 10 years, he'll be 32. I watched him a little more after that. And whenever I see him, I just think this is a player who will be at the top in around 10 years in all 3 formats. So it's a complete wild card, but that's because I don't think there are any world-class openers around that you can bet will be around in 10 years as well. So I'm going to go with Shubman Gill and Finn Allen for my 2 openers.
You're saying Finn Allen and not Rachin Ravindra. Rachin Ravindra, of course, was in our 20 players to watch out for, the list on Cricket Monthly. Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, he's been selected to tour England as well now, right?
Yes,
and he opens as well. I remember seeing his first class records just before we record this. Rachin Ravindra opens as well. Finn Allen, I'm not so sure about Daniel, and I could see the faces of the other panelists as well. I can see myself
being out for it, but I hope we've returned to this topic in 10 years' time.
My Haseeb Hameed pick doesn't sound so bad now. I don't mind Finn Allen just for that reason.
Well, my wild card opener, is one that I'm probably going to have to explain as well. It's not as sort of Hollywood scripted as Ronak's, and maybe not quite as obscure as Daniel's. But I went with a guy called James Bracey, who has been sort of England's 12th man over the last year or so, and is very highly rated as an opener or a top 3 sort of pick, and his stats don't immediately jump out to you, but he's been sort of picked as one of these players who's got something, is kind of a Trescothic Vaughan type player that Ed Smith, I suppose, to go back to the great man, had seen something, or the selectors had seen something in the way he plays, kind of dibbly dobbly seam on wet English pitches. And so his first class average is about 37 or something like that. But he has impressed with his temperament. He's a traditional sort of gritty opener, which I think we're going to have a lot of flashy players in this 11. But this is a guy that's happy to just bat all day and grind it out. His temperament for a young guy is very impressive. So he's the sort of left field name I've got in the mix for my sort of top 3. As I said, I think Crawley will be in there, but I picked him at number 3. I've got Gill as an opener, and I had Pukovski was kind of in the mix for me as well, just because he's been such a talent in Australia. He's been talked about for so many years, even though he's very young. And I don't think that the sort of the concussion thing is something that we should be holding against him if we're selecting a team purely on talent.
I think 2 of y'all have gone for Shubman Gill as an opener. 2 of y'all have gone for Pukovski. I think just by numbers, those 2 should be the openers in this test 11 for the future.
Fair enough.
All right. So we have Pukovski and we have Shubman Gill as our numbers 1 and 2. Now going back to number 3, Ronak, when I said Nazmul Hussain Shanto, and he's a left-handed batsman as well. He's one of the most promising cricketers in Bangladesh currently. Immediately you said no. Are you going with Zak Crawley? Shall we just end this discussion?
No, I'm not going with Zak.
You're not going with Crawley as well. Okay.
I'm not going with Zak Crawley only because the subcontinent exposed an unfortunate side of Zak Crawley. If you'd have been injured and not played in Sri Lanka, I would have probably been tempted to go with Zak Crawley, because that 267 just does wonders to the numbers per se, and shows the ability to play, big, long test match innings and whatnot. But I've not gone with Zak Crawley. I have, regarding Nazmul Hussain Shanto, again, I'll be honest, I haven't seen enough of Nazmul Hussain Shanto. I'd love to go with Mohammad Issam's gut, which would tell me that he would stay in this list. But like we've seen with a lot of talented left-hand batsmen, whether it's Mominul, Bangladesh's batsmen, with the exception of Shakib and Mushfiq, no one's really gone on to establish themselves over a long period of time. And Nazmul Hussain Shanto is in my 15. So I had him there. Like I told you, I had Shubman Gill in my top order, not as an opening bat, but I had him at 3/4. And partnering him, and this is perhaps another left field selection, but I've gone for Pathum Nissanka. And I have simply relied on my admiration on Andrew Fidel Fernando, who says Sri Lankan domestic batsmen do not score hundreds on test debut overseas. They don't do those sorts of things, right? And I did sort of watch a little bit of that innings against the West Indies. Full strength attack, Shannon Gabriel, Kemar Jason Holder, Rakeem Cornwall, who's pretty underrated, I think, in test cricket. But Pathum Nissanka looked the part. Let's not forget a first-class average of 64.5. And yes, there are questions on the credibility of Sri Lanka's domestic structure, but that's all the more reason why he shouldn't be doing what Andrew rightly says, which is pop up in test cricket and score 100, batting at 6-7, overseas. He is a top order batsman, essentially. He's got an attacking sort of natural game, which I think would be my type of player that I'd like to have in a 3. I've always preferred the Ricky Pontings to the Cheteshwar Pujaras. I'm not saying he's there, but I'm just going for my type of batsman that's appealing. But I've gone for Pathum Nissanka, and I had Shubman Gill at 4. So I'm obviously open to one inclusion, given Hasib Hamid will not make this team.
Alan, I think quite a few of us had Pathum. Yeah, quite a few of us did have Alan Pathum Nissanka on the list, but does he fit in at 3 there? That was a bit of a surprise there that he fits in at 3. I was thinking like 5 or maybe 6.
Yeah, I mean, I've got him at 5. I think he debuted at 6, and I don't know enough about where he bats in sort of domestic cricket. That the question marks about the Sri Lanka system are obviously there, but an average that high, I think it's the sixth or seventh highest first class average of all time, with a minimum of 50 innings. So he's in some pretty good company there.
We talk about a lot of players who maybe play other formats, who have other priorities, but I think it's fair to say everyone agrees Zak Crawley seems to take Test cricket fairly seriously. And I read something that George Dobell, I think, wrote about him, about how he once went to India and paid, I think, out of his own pocket to learn a few skills and try and find out how he could best cope with the wickets in the subcontinent and how he could improve his batting. So yeah, Zak Crawley's in my team, but I feel like I might not have seen quite enough of him to suggest that he'll slot in at number 3 in a World 11. We can do the middle order collectively, but I have gone for someone who hasn't yet played Test cricket at number 3. It's South Africa's Reynard van Tonder. For Ronak, I just tell him that he likes looking at first-class averages, so he averages 50 in first-class cricket, and the South African domestic structure, I guess, has a bit more international respect than the Sri Lankan one right now. Even if they don't produce international cricketers, I feel like they've got a system that if you're doing well and you're a fairly handy cricketer, and he's already scored a couple of double 100s, 600s already.
So we have Van Tonder, we have Crawley. I mentioned Shanto, but I don't think any of y'all are going for Nazmul Hussain Shanto. Alan, I want to put Ollie Pope's name out there as well as maybe a number 4, if we're counting 3 and 4 together, if we can do that. Would he fit in, or does he again, like Anisanka, come lower down for you?
No, I will take that suggestion and vote him in. I had Pope at 4 in my side, and I had Nisanka at Pope at 4 and Nisanka at 5. Pope is the sort of the princeling of English batting. He's the sort of the Joe Root, Ian Bell clone. And albeit he didn't have a great tour of India recently either. I mean, his Test career has been a little bit checkered so far, but his credentials, I mean, his first class average is when he was picked a couple of years ago, it was up in the Nisanka realms. It has dipped a bit through exposure to the highest level, but he I think will be around the England team for the next decade, possibly in all formats. But he's in the last couple of weeks, he's added another double 100 to his record. He does play at the Oval, which I suppose is something to factor in, where it is pretty flat and he scores a lot of runs there. But in terms of young players who've got Test hundreds, who've got the all-round game, who look good and score runs, I mean, yeah, he was one of my first names on the sheet, I think.
If from what I'm picking from Alan, if he's got Zak Crawley and Ollie Pope together in this 11, then this world-beating team isn't winning too much in India for the next 10 years, right? And I must say, Ollie Pope for me was perhaps the biggest disappointment of the recent Test series. I just had so much expectation from him. We worked with Ian Bell for that series, and we were hoping that we'd have these great conversations of, oh my God, well, he tell us, why Ollie Pope is this good, and all of a sudden you ask him, why is Ollie Pope not being able to score a run, right? I have gone for a simple rider here of players that play well outside of their comfort zone, even if it's a small sample size. We can never know with first-class picks, and I respect what Alan and Daniel throw up. They watch it and follow a lot more first-class cricket around the world than I do. But I have a call that at 5, I hope I'm able to explore with Daniel and Alan Gardner, which is I want Washington Sundar in this team as a number 5 batsman. And the reason I say that is because this guy is perhaps a cricketer with an identity crisis, as someone who's looked at as a T20 specialist and first a bowler, then a batsman. I think that's completely off. I think Washington Sundar's calling in 10 years' time will be as a batsman in red ball cricket. And depending on how his white ball game evolves, he may or may not make a 20 over side or a 50 over side. He's almost, in many ways, the path seems Steve Smith-esque. You think you bring him on as someone who can bowl and bat a bit, and all of a sudden you realize he's a far better batsman, and Steve Smith's better on qualities beyond technique. Washington Sundar in Australia had technique, had temperament, was fine against the moving ball, was fine against the short ball, excellent 100 in the series against England as well. So I have a lot of time for Washington Sundar, the batsman.
I'm happy to be convinced about Washington Sundar. I already have 2 spinners in my side, so I don't know where the side is playing. If he's playing in India, I think we'll be fine. But yeah, it's just based on his flamboyance. I'm happy to. I'm the passionate case that Ronak made. Of course, I'm happy to switch Pope for Sundar, and I'm happy to lend my vote to him, even though he did not extend me the same courtesy of Finn Allen.
I think Nisanka's got to be in there, and I'm a bit torn on Crawley or Pope, but yeah, I would still pick Crawley at 3. I think on the strength of one of the. I mean, it was a truly record-breaking innings. And while, yeah, I mean, Ollie Pope, I think, will be there in the long run. He's had a trickier few months for England, certainly. But yeah, I'm erring towards one of those two anyway.
All right. So Alan's going with either Crawley or Pope. Then Nisanka at number 4, and at number 5, Washington Sundar with Rishabh Pant at number 6. Daniel, the call lies with you.
So yeah, for me, I have Van Tonder at 3, Crawley at 4. Ronak has, I guess, convinced me to switch Pope for Sundar at 5. So I'll do that without a gun held to my head, even though I'm sitting in what looks like a bunker. and yeah, 6, it's Rishabh Pant, with the obvious caveat that India have enough talent to possibly have someone pushing him out of the side in 10 years' time. But yeah, that's my 3 to 6.
All right. So Ronak, do you agree? Crawley at number 3, Nisanka at number 4, Washington Sundar at number 5, and at number 6, Rishabh Pant.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
All right, Alan. So you mentioned number 7, and you mentioned 2 names, Cameron Green and Sam Curran. Who would you go with among the 2? I honestly, from my point of view, I do not think Green is that great a bowler. His first class record, particularly when it comes to with the ball, does not hold up to play in a world test side at number 7.
Yeah, it's a little bit, I suppose, depending, the balance of the side and what strength you're looking for. Green's the batting all-rounder, I'd say, and Curran is the bowling option. Curran doesn't have a first-class 100, let alone a Test 100, even though people for ever since he's come into the side, really been talking about him being someone that might bat at 6 and might turn into a batting all-rounder. I think he's had too much on his hands rescuing Chennai Super Kings to really focus on becoming a Test match batsman. But we know Sam Curran makes things happen. We like left armers, even if they're on the dinky side. So yeah, I had Green, I think, just for batting balance as much as anything. But we've got a strong top 6. It depends on who's going to come further down. I know Daniel's already mentioned Rashid Khan. I've got Rashid Khan. He can bat a bit as well. So yeah, I like Cameron Green, but I haven't seen masses of him. Sam Curran, I've seen him do very good things in all formats for England. So yeah.
Yeah, so we know all about Sam Curran. Daniel, let's throw another name out there. How about Wayan Mulder at number 7?
Much as I like to go with as many South Africans as possible, once again, Wayan Mulder is someone, from what I saw of him, I liked what I saw, but I don't think he's someone who potentially has what it takes to be in that side for 10 years' time and then be good enough to be in a World 11. The only thing that goes in his favor is it's really hard to pick 10 years out into the future an all-rounder with any degree of certainty. You can look at first-class stats and say someone's a good bowler or a good batsman, but to say someone fits that Ben Stokes, Jacques Kallis role, that's really hard to do. And so it's basically for that reason that I considered both Wayan Mulder and Sam Curran. But I'm going to not choose any of those. I'm just going to put my faith in Rashid Khan improving his batting enough to be able to bat at 7, because I just can't find anyone who might be a seam bowling all-rounder in 10 years' time who I think is good enough to be mentioned now.
Ronak, that's a risky choice, right?
So I'm not sold in that. And Rashid Khan, I actually do not have Rashid Khan in my team. And I'll come to that a little later. So I won't. But I'll tell you what I've made on the all-rounder.
You've picked Dom Bess, haven't you, Ronak?
Sorry, what's that, Alan?
You've picked Dom Bess, haven't you?
Oh, if only. Anyway, no. So coming back to it, I had Cameron Green, Wayan Mulder at one slot, and that sort of goes to what is it that this team, looking at the rest of the shape of the team, would you rather have the guy who bowls in Wayan Mulder, or the guy who bats in Cameron Green? I've got a lot of time for Cameron Green, the batsman there. He may very well be one of those, game-changing number 7s in Test cricket going forward. And I think his bowling will improve. He's got the ingredients. I don't think he bowled well at all against India. but there is someone who doesn't look like they're gonna be a test match bowler, and there are those that look a good bowler but they just don't bowl well. And I think I'd put Cameron Green in that category. I think over time he will bowl better and he will eventually be a force to reckon with in Test cricket. So he probably takes the edge over Ryan Mulder, even though I know that in South Africa they're looking at Mulder to do the Zak Crawley role, which is an extraordinary comparison to make. But like I said, that was the one slot I wasn't sure of, so that's my all-rounder. But I do have Sam Curran in my team in addition to that. So I have Sam Curran. I have a lot of time for Sam Curran, for the simple reason that Test cricket is for players where temperament tends to trump talent, and something about Sam Curran seems to just tell, as much as I wanted to vote against him since that series against India, I just can't put my heart to that. He's the man that cost Ed Smith his job. Let's be fair. Having been picked over other frontline seamers at times. But I think Sam Curran will only improve as a Test match all-rounder.
Can we also take a vote on what color his hair will be by then?
That's a good one. Yeah. And he's played a fair bit of Test cricket, 20-odd tests at the age of 22, 23 is a decent sample size. So you can hold that against him because he's not that good, but we're also picking guys that have played 2-3 tests, and in 25 tests, their numbers might be completely off the ball. So I see Sam Curran as the kind of cricketer that'll always find a way to be someone who can contribute in whatever format, whatever team he plays. So I have him in my side.
So we were chatting about all-rounders, and considering this selection meeting is going overtime, Alan felt hungry and he's decided to relocate to his kitchen. Alan, considering you're the most invested in the all-rounder for our 11 for the future, who would you go with at number 7? Now, we have seen cases made for Ryan Mulder, for Sam Curran, and for Cameron Green. And Rashid Khan as well, I have to mention.
Yeah, I had to go and refuel because this meeting is an epic. And there are almost too many options to consider. I'm tempted because Ronak has made a strong case, and I had him in my team, or certainly as one of the options there. Sam Curran makes things happen. He's going to provide left arm angle. He's going to tonk it all over the shop. And Daniel obviously had suggested pushing Rashid Khan up there. I've got Rashid Khan a place below, so they're almost interchangeable. And then you've got all sorts of mayhem being caused down the order. So that's where I'm leaning.
But what I'm hearing, 2 of y'all have Sam Curran in your 11, 2 of y'all have Rashid Khan. That gives both the players, I think, to slot in at 7 and 8. Yes. Ronak, do you want to disagree with Rashid Khan's inclusion?
Danielle, if you can get the coach's ear, you can get Rashid at 7 and Sam Curran at 8, and we'll do that.
You asked me about whether Rashid Khan makes it automatically because Alan and Daniel have a lot of time for him. I have a lot of time for Rashid Khan, but he doesn't make my team for the simple reason that I am basing my a sort of a projection for Test cricket 10 years down the line based on the information that we have today, and the future does not belong to the wrist spinner in Test match cricket for me. It's a dreadful shame. And that wrist spinner, normally Rashid Khan counters or is the exception to all conventional rules for wrist spinners. But I remember that test in Bangalore when he came to India. I know he's got heaps of wickets against Zimbabwe recently, and he's got wickets against lesser opposition with the red ball recently. It's the same reason that we spoke at the top where Daniel said why we don't pick Afghan players is I want to watch Rashid Khan bowl in a long summer in England, bowl in a long season in Australia, or even bowl in South Africa.
I just quickly say that we shouldn't hold the reluctance of certain Test cricketing nations to play against smaller cricketing nations against those players from smaller cricketing nations.
I'm with you on that, Daniel, and I wish I had a better sample size to watch Rashid Khan as I did for n number of Afghan players to make a better judgment on it. But the one thing that I did see when Rashid Khan played Test cricket in that test in Bangalore, he got 2 for 150 in 38 overs. He didn't look anywhere near a threat, and that was against an Indian team that was, I think, without Virat Kohli, without a couple of frontline players anyway. So when quality Test batsmen show themselves up, when they don't have the pressure of going after Rashid Khan, is he really as big a threat as he is in white ball cricket? Anyway, he's going to make this team, but I will make a case for Mehdi Hassan Miraz before he does. He was my team before Rashid was. Alan would remember how warmly he welcomed the English in his Test debut. 20 odd wickets or 19 wickets in his first 2 Test matches. Yes, on pitches that assisted, but I'm not holding that against the spinner. his numbers have gone only one way from there, which was expected. He averages in the mid-30s. But if you've got 100 test wickets playing for Bangladesh in the average around the 30s or so, at the age of 22, 23, I rely on Graham Swan's very wise words that the best years for a finger spinner as he comes closer to 30. And I see Mehdi Hassan speak ahead of him, and he's already got a record that for me is more than satisfactory. He got 100 recently with the bat, so that gives you the all-round, that ticks the all-round box that you're looking for in your spinner as well, whether that's Rashid Khan or R. Ashwin or whoever you want. He can hold a bat, and for me, he's a special talent. He plays in a team that doesn't win a lot of Test cricket, but for me, he has shown me more of a sample size to be picked ahead of Rashid Khan in Test match cricket.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted by Mehdi's case. We're talking about players who are under 25 here. It should almost be illegal to pick that players that young as the spinner in a Test side. You have to be a hardened old salt with fingers, calloused fingers, to do the job well at that level. So the names, some of the names, some fresh-faced guys. I mean, the other names I was just going to touch on were Lasith, Embaldenia, and even the new kid Jaya Wickrama, who's already got an 11-wicket haul after one Test for Sri Lanka. The reason I sort of erred away from Mehdi is that an off spinner with an average in the mid-30s is just not very sexy, and he does offer a bit for your batting as well, but I wanted that bit of X factor, and I think Rashid, where Rashid Khan kind of won me over recently, was bowling 60 overs in an innings to claw out and taking 7 wickets in the process to claw out Zimbabwe's kind of dogged resistance in one of those games in the UAE, which appears just the game has died. And it was Rashid Khan, the limited overs magician, who just toiled away all day in the dirt and got the job done.
All right. So
remember, Embaldenia is a guy who briefly had England believing they'd get bowled out chasing 72 or something a few weeks ago, and he's only 23. And as everyone here agrees, spinners tend to get better in their 30s, especially Sri Lankan spinners, if you're thinking about Rangana Herath as well. So yeah, I think he'll be an absolute beast by then.
And let's not forget that England team had Zak Crawley and.
Well, I mean, one advantage of picking Lasith and Embaldenia in the 12 is that he can bowl.
Zak Crawley won't have to face it.
and well, yeah, but he can improve against him in the nets.
Yeah. Or he won't get picked in the 11, looking at how he's struggling in the nets.
All right, so we have 8 certainties. There's Gill, there's Pucovski, there's Crawley, there's Nissanka, there's Sundar, there's Pant, Sam Curran, and Rashid Khan. We're down to numbers 9, 10, and 11. Can I just say Shaheen Afridi, number 11? Let's just put him in.
Put him in.
Yeah, so I have him there once again because I don't want to sound hypocritical now that we're talking about the Pakistani bowler. So I will just say that in 10 years' time, it's really hard to say what a fast bowler like Shaheen Afridi will be like in terms of his body condition, his fitness, because since his debut, I was looking at the numbers here, since his debut, only 7 pace bowlers have bowled more international deliveries than him, and all of them are older. In fact, he's the youngest in our top 50 for the number of international bowlers who've bowled as much as he has, fast bowlers. No one's younger than him in the top 50. So in that sense, for someone as young as he is, and he looks his age too, Pakistan tend never really to rest him, which has been a sore point, a rod that's been used to beat misbah with, essentially. He doesn't want to go without him at all. So Shaheen Afridi tends to play all the time. And Pakistan have a history of at times mismanaging certain injuries, especially back injuries for fast bowlers. So yeah, I sometimes worry about that. But if we assume, as I think we all hope is the case, that he's fit and firing, then I think he's an absolute no-brainer to have at the 11. He's in a World 11 now, in my opinion, and he'd be in a World 11 in 10 years' time.
This was Daniel talking to fans of Pakistan out there. Temper your expectations of Shaheen Afridi.
Yeah, but I would go the other way and say get carried away. So Daniel, he's made a great case for Shaheen Afridi, and I think along with Pant, Afridi was the easiest pick in this team. I debated and thought for every other position, but of the first 2 names that I put in my 11 were Pant and Shaheen Afridi. So I hope that injuries, etc., don't don't come in the way of what would be a terrific.
He's like. He's the pick. If we were doing this 10 years ago, we'd have had Mohamed Amir in, wouldn't we? So what could possibly go wrong?
Well, I think this is the clip we should use when we talk to talk about just to boost Alan's mention slightly. I also wanted to quickly mention I don't have him in my team, but maybe Naseem Shah, if he can conquer his own injury issues, I think is a tremendously exciting bowler. And I do remember that one dismissal where he got Ollie Pope out in the test. It's not representative of how he always bowls, of course, but it is representative of just how high his ceiling is. So I don't have him in my 11 because we can only have 3 fast bowlers, but that's another one I wanted to call.
So if I could rally with Daniel, I have Naseem Shah in my 11.
Yeah.
And I had Naseem Shah and Shaheen Afridi together. And I know this is, again, someone you don't have to look at the numbers at all for. You just have to look at how he's bowling. And you have to just look at someone finding the way to channelize all that talent and work with it and keep him fit, keep him focused. And this is a guy that I think would put the fear of God in most top order batsmen around the world on a pitch that is assisting, or on pitches that don't. He could have the ability to transcend conditions and still be effective. So for me, he's the package. I hope he stays fit. And I have him in this team along with Shaheen Afridi, which makes for a heck of a new bowling pair.
I have in my 11 another wild card, which is Marco Janssen, another left armour, quick, unproven admittedly, but offers a bit with a bat. I discovered a top score of 87 in first class cricket already, and he's only played a sort of handful of games, but averages 22 in first class, and has obviously been picked up by the IPL scouts already as well. So, but another left armour, we have Shaheen, we've got Sam Curran in this team, so he might get passed over. But Naseem Shah, everyone likes a kid at that age who comes out with wheels, I'm very happy to have him in. I saw him bowl during the last summer in England. He was inconsistent, it's fair to say, but he has so many attributes to like. A lovely away swinger, hits the bat hard. That I remember that dismissal that Daniel's mentioning of Ollie Pope, and the attraction of young Pakistani quicks. You've got me.
Yeah. There is. You mentioned Marco Janssen. He's a South African. Did any of y'all consider Gerald Coetzee?
Yeah, he's in my team.
He's in your team.
He's in my team. Yeah,
he was
because
there.
I think it's a shame not to have a South African fast bowler in a World 11. It's just an investment worth making. I think the speed he generates from a weird action where he almost stands still in his delivery stride and then just speeds through. I'm not sure a biomechanics expert would enjoy that. I think he can optimize his action a bit more. But yeah, he just hits the deck so hard and generates space. Whenever you watch him play, you just think this guy, regardless of pitches, could trouble batsmen everywhere. So yeah, and I think given South Africa's history with base bowling, how players tend to drift in and out of the side, he's going to get an opportunity sooner rather than later.
His action, it reminded me a little bit like Dale Steyn's, especially the release. And he's as quick as well. So that was something. There are 2 more names I want to throw out there before we finalize. We have Shaheen Shah for sure. We have Naseem Shah, 90% there. Now, before we finalize the final name, 2 current test cricketers. Blessing Muzarabani, who plays for Zimbabwe, of course, and he's doing pretty well of late. And I couldn't believe this guy is lesser than 25, Lahiru Kumara. It feels like I've been watching him for ages from Sri Lanka.
Yeah, so the thing with, I actually didn't pick Naseem Shah just because of my worries with his injury issues. So I actually went with Blessing Muzarabani in my side. And that's not just because I wrote 4,000 words on him a couple of weeks ago and I want everyone to kind of read up on. That might have played a part. So yeah, conflict of interest disclosure here. But yeah, it's just that Zimbabwe's fast bowling legacy history is just so barren. It boils down basically to either Heath Streak's career statistics or a very famous Edo Brandes hat trick. But other than that, I just think that Zimbabwe have been crying out for a bowler like Muzarabani whose previous 6 months reflect more his ability than his time at Northants did. I feel like he didn't quite get a chance, especially to play white ball cricket at Northants. He was troubled with an injury. But I spoke to Jason Holder for the piece, and he said that he was really encouraged by how Muzarabani bowled. And occasionally, I think when he was fully fit, he did show Northants what he was capable of as well. And during the last 6 months, Zimbabwe have played Pakistan quite a fair bit, and he's already dismissed, I think, Babar Azam 6 times in 10 innings he's bowled to him. He's tall, he hits the card again. He once again manages to get pace and bounce out of pitches in Zimbabwe that at times aren't conducive to his particular strengths. And it's just playing cricket for Zimbabwe must be one of the hardest jobs in world cricket. It's the closest you could come to almost being an amateur and having to deal with other life realities. It's not like Zimbabwean cricketers live a costed lifestyle where they're protected. So yeah, I'm just going to go for him based on a lot of these factors. And go read the piece.
So we have at number 10 and 11, Alan, Shaheen Afridi and Naseem Shah. The job is now on you. Pick the number 9 for our side.
I'm very tempted to just keep Daniel in, give him the best day, keep that smile on his face and back him up on blessing Muzarabani. Just because, well, it was very convincingly argued, but I like the idea of a tall line and length seamer in there alongside the wild cards of Shaheen and Naseem.
All right, Daniel, considering you threw both their names out, Gerald Coetzer and a blessing Muzarabani, you get to pick one of the two for this 11.
I think because we've got Shaheen Afridi and Naseem Shah, we have a lot of pace in the side, and Gerald Coetzer might be overdoing it a bit and compromising on control. So yeah, as Alan pointed out, Muzarabani is a line and length seamer, and alongside Afridi and Naseem Shah, I just think he's the perfect foil. If he could take the new ball with Shaheen Afridi and then Naseem Shah comes in at first change, and I think we've got quite an intoxicating mix when it comes to those fast bowlers. So yeah, that's a side I would pay to watch when they finally allow crowds back in.
So guys, we have our 11. I'm going to go through it again. We have to pick a captain, for this 11. It's Shubman Gill and Will Pucovski, your openers. Zak Crawley at number 3. Pathum Nissanka at number 4. Washington Sundar at number 5. Rishabh Pant is our wicketkeeper at number 6. It is Sam Curran as the all-rounder at 7. Rashid Khan at 8. Then we have Naseem Shah, Shaheen Afridi and blessing Muzarabani. Two things here, one captain and one 12th man.
I think Embuldeniya seems to be the choice that we've gone with. I think that Daniel said he would be happy to have Embuldeniya in his squad, and you need the extra spin option if conditions demand that you remove.
So no Mehdi, but for 12th man?
No.
Mehdi was in my 11 ahead of Rashid Khan, and it'll probably be proven when Rashid Khan retires from Test cricket in 4 years' time or something to focus on all his leagues around the world. So.
Yes, I think we picked 12 players almost. I think Sam Curran and Naseem Embuldeniya rotate as 12th men depending on.
I'm saying for the 12th man role in our team currently, do we pick Embuldeniya or Mehdi Hasan Miraz?
I'd go for Embuldeniya.
Embuldeniya. Mehdi is either in my team in the 11 or he doesn't.
Yeah. And Alan, I know clearly is not a fan of Mehdi. So it's Lasith Embuldeniya as our 12th man. Captain.
Don't pin that on me, but I think I want the left arm option, for the 12th.
All right. So Lasith Embuldeniya it is, who is as our 12th man. As captain, we know Ronak is going to make the case for Pant. So Ronak, the stage is yours.
No, it was easy. For me, Pant is captain because I actually see him developing into some form of leadership role. I would hope for India if he stays consistent across formats, because India like a one format captain, if that's possible. I like the little bit that I've seen of him as Delhi, in the Delhi Capitals dugout. I know he's captain for Delhi before that too. There's something about the personality that is reminiscent of Dhoni. He's calm, he's casual, he's fairly straightforward and honest. Of course, Dhoni got very complicated with his press conferences as he got older, but that's just an Indian captain thing. But in his, it's not changed the way that he approaches cricket himself. So I mean, he was the first name on the team sheet. So for me, I'm looking at him as captain.
Any concerns from either of y'all regarding Rishabh Pant?
I'm almost embarrassed. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say he's the one that I think has the sort of captaincy experience. He's obviously been put in charge of Delhi Capitals with the injury to Shreyas Iyer, so he's got a little bit of experience with doing the job there. And unless we're going to give it to Rashid Khan just to confirm his commitment to Test cricket over the next decade,
and he has captained in Test cricket already.
So that's the alternative to Ronak's sensible choice. But I'd be happy with Pant, I think. Over to Daniel.
Time with Ricky Ponting will do a world of good for just punt the overall cricketer. So there's that as well.
Yeah, I just when I picked the side, I thought it might be nice to have a New Zealand captain, but Finn Allen didn't end up making the side. For me, it's between Pant and Rashid Khan. I guess now it's not quite as fashionable to give the captaincy to someone who bowls quite as much as Rashid Khan does. So again, Pant is the safe, sensible choice. I'm happy with that too. I think we have consensus there.
All right, so we're going with this trend of wicketkeeper, captain, wicketkeeper. Rishabh Pant is our captain for a dream men's test 11 for the future. The 11 again: Shubman Gill, Will Pucovski, Zak Crawley, Pathum Nissanka, Washington Sundar, Rishabh Pant, Sam Curran, Rashid Khan, Naseem Shah, Shaheen Afridi, and Blessing Muzarabani. Alan Gardner, Rana Kapoor, Daniel Rasool, thank you so much for joining us on ESPN Cricinfo Dream Team, where we picked our men's test 11 for the future. Stay clean, stay safe, get vaccinated if you can. Have a good day.
I think, may I just say, I hope you host Dream Team for the next 10 years.